Hey everyone, this is me, the Ended Viking. I am here with another RPG Musings vlog. It has been far too long since I've done one of these, and I was like talking to somebody recently who was talking to me about YouTube channels and things like that, and I was really inspired after talking about that. I'll just say it. This guy's name is Mark, and he is the guy who is the publisher of Vindication. He's the CEO of Orange Nebula Games. Really nice guy, and he was talking to me about YouTube channels and what makes the difference between a successful one and whatever. And he after getting done talking to him, it really inspired me just to say, you know what, I'm going to create stuff that I really enjoy. And I really like talking about RPGs, and I like telling RPG stories. And I'm not cool enough to have cool little animation or anything like that. Though there are some channels out there that are pretty cool. But I do have about 40 years of D&D stories. Because I've been playing since, well, I'm 47. I've been playing since I was 7 years old. So I want to tell a story today about my favorite total party kill. Now, total party kills they tend to be either regaled, oh, that was awesome, or oh my god, what happened? And you don't want these, right? You want these, the ones that are people they wistfully remember those moments. The players do that were involved in them. Oh, remember the time when this happened, when the fire giant dropped molten steel on us, and that actually happened in the campaign. Maybe I'll tell that story sometime. Let me just say this. I always think D&D stories a little bit weird because of the fact that I'm telling you this story about something that happened in a game that I DM'd. But you don't know if it's true or not. I could be just making this, for lack of a better word, crap up as I go along. And sometimes I see stuff on other things, and I'm that doesn't seem like it really would happen, or people wouldn't really react like that. But then again, what do I know? Everybody's D&D group reacts to these situations, and this is role-playing games in general. But everybody's group reacts to situations the way people have different personas, different mentalities, different whatever, and they're going to do these things the way that they do these things, right? So the big thing here is that this was a campaign that I was running, and it was something I was excited to do, and it was the Lost City of Barakus. Now I think I've done a review of that. It's been a while, because that's an adventure that came out many years ago. It was originally from Necromancer Games, and then it came out from Frog God Games, and they did a reprint of it. Fabulous book. I strongly suggest picking up a copy of it. It's one of those, if you can steal from it, as I said, good dungeon masters steal. They steal, and they steal. They steal from movies, they steal from books, they steal from TV shows, and they just keep on stealing, because there's a originality may be infinite, but good originality is relatively finite. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a shove out the door from something you see in a movie or something you read that will just inspire you to create something amazing. So even though this was a big rarity for me at the time, I actually ran Lost City of Barakus straight. I was hey, I got this book. It's really awesome. It's for level 1 adventures, and that's the thing. It is for it takes adventures level 1 through 5. It is a total sandbox. This was a sandbox game before sandboxes were cool. Literally, you can push the players in any direction you want, but you drop them in this city of Endhome that's in Lost City of Barakus, and then they get to just explore the city. And as they explore the city, they're going to find out about lots of crazy things going on in that city that just aren't on the up and up. And eventually what's going to happen is that something's going to push them in the direction of the Lost City of Barakus, which is this dungeon. Well, for lack of it's a mega dungeon. It's huge, it's got multiple levels, it's got hundreds of rooms, and it's got all kinds of crazy things going on inside. And you'll go there for multiple different quests. So that being said, I remember everybody was super excited to play it. We got everybody together. You know, back then we had a group of like 5 or 6, if I remember correctly. And I'm not going to remember everybody that was involved in this particular thing, but there was a few memorable things that happened. So they make it to the dungeon. They're searching for this lost wizard. This woman had contacted them or ran into them. And like said that she was like, she kept on having dreams that her husband was trapped in the dungeon, and and he's either a wizard or a sorcerer, I don't remember correctly, and she says, you got to go and save him, you know, and she's like, and then, you know, like most of the party was like, well, what can she pay us? But there was a couple of, you know, people that were more of the good aligned, that were willing to like say, you know what, this is the right thing to do. We should go and try to save him. And plus, we'll get to the dungeon, we can kill some evil creatures, maybe get their gold, and then we can, you know, come back here and I can buy that hand axe +1 that's in that shop right there that I want to buy. But regardless, they all gathered together and they started going into the dungeon. Now, I won't bother you with a lot of the like preliminary encounters they had. They ran into some traps, ran into some like kobolds and what have you. But for the most part, they were having a good time with it. They were going pretty well. And it's one of those things where they're close enough to the city that they could come back and they could recharge, relax, and then go back out again. But they're getting close. They're getting close to running out. And I'm going to take a quick little sub break here. There's something I have to... this was something I did horribly back when 3.0 came out. This is D&D 3.0. I used to create like basically encounters that were so difficult that the party would use up like all the resources for that combat. I mean, they'd use up all their spells, they'd use up their potions, they'd use up their clerics, use up their healing, all those things. And so then to get to the next spot, they'd all rest and they'd sleep, right? And then they'd get up in the morning and they'd recharge all their spells, and then we go to the next room. And then we'd fight. And you know, and if you play like that and you love it, great, super awesome, go ahead. And we seem to enjoy it, but as I got away from that, I realized this is ridiculous. One, they actually have wandering monsters come in and kill them because they're taking a rest in the middle of the dungeon, and they're gonna, like, some monster's gonna come in and say, who killed all the ogres? And then, wait a minute, there's a light over there. Let's go get them, you know. So, and plus, it's just not real, right? You wouldn't just have a big giant battle and then you'd sleep, and then you have another big. Because like you'd fight for a half hour and then you lay around for like 18 hours and waiting. So I was trying to get away from that, and so like it's much better in my opinion to have like little tiny like encounters that like just kind of like and give the players the choice of like, do I really want to use my potion here? Do I really think I need to use a web spell here? Do I need to use my this magic missile scroll that I have? You know, things like that, where they're gonna have to make up their mind as far as what they want to do. So getting to the point, they didn't make it out of the dungeon, obviously, because I'm telling you a story about total party kill, and this is the first session of this. So, and this is back when we used to have like 7-8 hour long sessions, right? And so this is like, we're on like hour 5 or hour 6. And so they're kind of cruising around, and it's like 4 or 5 of them. They're a little beat up, but they're doing okay, you know. And like the gnome sorcerer is like down to like 1 or 2 spells. The cleric's got maybe 1 healing left. The barbarian doesn't have any rages left over, you know, because this is back in like 3.5 or 3.0 days. The barbarian doesn't have any rages left, but you know they can still go. You know they've rested up from the last rage. You know, but you know they're down to very little healing. They're down to very little spells, and they're like, well, just 1 more room, and that's usually what gets you, right? You know, push your luck, just 1 more room. So they decide to just kind of went down this pathway, and they saw a light up ahead. And so they could have turned around, and you know, and if they had, this wouldn't be a good story. So I'm glad they kept going, because obviously I had this story. So they turn around and they come into this room, and in this room there's just this man, and he's got like a bear skin armor on, like hide armor. He's got this big giant axe like that's resting next to him, and he's got this big giant dog with him. But they're all by themselves in this room. you know, and there's just like, and in the room there's like this, basically like this bed that's just a big giant pile of animal skins. You know, there's this little tiny cooking fire, and there's this greasy pot that has some sort of meat bubbling in it. You know, other than that, there's just like really nothing in the room. You know, it's just like, and it's just kind of messy, and it's like they were like, oh, you know, this guy's like a barbarian, which, you know, yeah, he is, right? The other thing that's like weird is that there's this big giant metal spike on one wall, and they can see there's like this big slab of beef that's like stuck on it, and like, and they can see that there's like a fire like smoldering underneath it, and like, and somebody's like, oh, he's like smoking his meat, you know, he's just kind of slowly, and so like, yeah, I mean, so first of all, let me take a step back. I like it when rooms have that kind of description, when you can tell people about those things, like you can say, and it gives, like, as my friend Craig always says, a verisimilitude. Like the idea that, like, okay, yeah, I get it. This is a barbarian living in this cave, in this dungeon. He's kind of got this area staked out for himself. You know, maybe they didn't think it through too well, because obviously if this guy's by himself with this dog, he's probably pretty tough, right? But they're like thinking, well, there's 4 of us, there's 1 of him, you know, this shouldn't be too much difficult. But maybe he's a buddy, maybe he's somebody you can talk to. Another bad idea, because he's in this dungeon, you know, it's like, obviously he doesn't really like, even if he wasn't evil, he wasn't like, you know, hey, yeah, come on in, let's sit down and play some canasta or something. You know, no, nothing's going to happen like that. So, so they come in and they start having a discussion with him, and like, and you know, he's an evil dude, like, I forget what the character's name is or anything like that, and like the fighter in the party, dwarf fighter, like, he's looking at the guy's axe, and it's like this big 2-handed axe, and it's like, you know, and the guy just keeps it polished, and he's like, what does that guy's axe look like? And I was just like, and I can't remember if it was magical or not, but I was like, you know, it looks nice. You know, because it even said in the book, he's like, he takes really good care of the axe. You know, I think it might have been masterwork or something, using those terminologies. And it's like, yeah, it looks really nice. You know, it looks razor sharp. And he's like, oh, and so like, you know, and then like you know, the dwarf is like, you know, literally like, I really like that axe. You know, so he's starting to get, and so I don't know exactly how the fight got started, but I think it was like something. It was egged on a little bit, you know, by the fighters. So, boom, the fight starts, right? And let me precursor this. I roll all my damage rolls, all of my hit rolls, all my rolls, unless it's something that I need to keep hidden from the players. I roll them all out in front of the players. I let the dice fall where the dice fall. I'm a big believer in that. And so the fight starts, and like, so like the barbarian can't rage, but the barbarian rushes in, and the fighter rushes in, and like, there was a cleric, and then the sorcerer, like, it was a sorcerer thief, if I remember correctly, the gnome, because I think they had gained a level. Yeah, we did take a break, and then they had gained enough experience to gain a level, and so they were all like 2nd level, but they were still, you know, getting beat down. And the sorcerer thief, I think it was, yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The whole point is that the very first roll of the thing was against the barbarian that was fighting, and like, it was, you know, I won initiative, and I rolled a 20, and I was just like, oh geez, you know, confirmed the critical, and I rolled like an 18. So, and the guy raged first, like, rah! You know, rages, and he goes after him. And so then it was like a great axe. It was a great axe +1. So I got to roll 3d12 for the critical. And it was, yeah, just boom. Barbarian's dead. You know, just axe in his chest. You know, like something ridiculous. Because, like, you know, the guy had like +7 or +8 to his damage. That was 24 points alone. Plus the die. I mean, it was just like, yeah, it was like, you watch as like this guy's axe just caves, like cuts directly like down the shoulder, like halfway through, almost like bisecting the barbarian, just falls in just a pool in the spray of blood. And everybody's like, you know, because the guy's like a 4th level barbarian or 5th level barbarian. But I mean, admittedly, I did roll really well. So the dwarf fighter is like, like, you son of a, and like, and then he hits him, because barbarians never really have a really good armor class, and so he hits him, and so now these two are going back and forth, and then the cleric and the dog are going at it, because the dog's like, taking off, and so the sorcerer is there, and he's like got like one magic missile spell or something, so he's just like, and he does that, and he's got nothing else to do, he's like throwing daggers, he can't really do much. But I remember like the cleric didn't have a lot of hit points. They had like 12. The dog got like 2 attacks a round or something like that. Just dropped him to like -4, -5 hit points. He was the guy was over. But the fighter, the dwarven fighter, and the barbarian were going toe to toe, like back and forth. Like I just wasn't rolling well for the barbarian at that point. Dwarf was rolling well, and getting hits. And I remember like. Basically, like, at the same round that the cleric dropped, like that -5, both the barbarian and the dwarf hit each other. They both did max damage, and they both did enough damage to knock themselves into negative hit points. And the thing was, it was like the barbarian was going to die, because his rage was going to go away, and he was going to lose all those extra hit points from the rage, and he was going to die. The dwarf was bleeding out. And so here's this gnome sorcerer, and he's all alone, and this gnome sorcerer, and he's got this like giant, rabid, like feral Rottweiler dog, like, and the gnome runs. He's just like, I'm out, and he just and starts running. Well, here's the problem: gnomes don't run very fast, right? So the thing is that, and so the dog's like, how, and just taking off. And I looked at my buddy Jason, who was running the gnome, and I just said to him, it's going to catch up with you. And like he had like 9 hit points. I mean, it was not looking good. And so he ran to this section of the cavern where there was like a 4-way section. And he knew which way was out, because they had the map and everything like that. And I forget what, like Obscuring Mist or something like that was the spell he had. The last spell he had on a scroll or something like that. And he said, I'm going to run to that section. I'm going to run to the outside. I'm going to start running to the outside. I'm going to cast Obscuring Mist in that section, and I'm going to take off running. And I'm going to like just hope that the dog doesn't pick the right way to chase him down. And I was like, yeah, I mean that'll work, right? But there's a random chance that the dog will pick like the right way, right? And so there's 3 possibilities the dog could go, and I took out the D6 and I said a 1 or a 2, he picks the right direction. Anything else, you make it up alive, and he'd be able to race back. Maybe he could double back and save the dwarf, and the cleric for that matter. No, wait, I actually forgot. The cleric didn't actually die that way. The cleric actually got, I forgot, this is horrible. In this section of the rules, it actually states that the barbarian actually will grapple. And so when the grapple with one and try to impale them on the spike. And so I forgot, that actually did happen in that combat where the cleric was fighting the dog. And after the barbarian killed the other barbarian, he, his next action was to grapple the cleric and then just slam them on the spike and just kill them like that. I forgot about that. So it was actually like the dwarf was fighting both the dog and the other one at the same time. Maybe there was a thief or something that died too. But regardless, cutting back. Sorry about that. So the gnome is running, and I just took the D6 and I threw it in the air and I let it bong 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 drop on the table, and it was a 1. And so everybody's like, oh, and I remember, like I said, it's like in slow motion. The slow motion movie is the gnome looking back, and then he looks back and out of the mist, he just sees the dog hoof, hoof, and just chases him down. He's like, trying to pull out his dagger, and last second, the dog just leaps on his back. They wouldn't show it graphically in the movie. You just see the gnome running out of the scene, and you see the dog, coming, and then hear the screams later or whatever like that. And And everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe!" And then they're like, "Why?" And like somebody like Kirk said, "Oh, I rolled and I stabilized." I was like, "Great!" So the dog comes back and eats you. That was just like, you know, just so or the fighter said, "I stabilized," you know. So so that was like that's probably my favorite total party kill of all time. And it's one of those things where it's like it happened fairly, right? The players pushed their luck a little bit, and they could have gotten lucky, but unfortunately, you know, some bad rolls didn't go their way. It also was one of those things where, like I said, if they had gone back, or if they had won that battle, nobody would have remembered that, right? But my group, to this day, still remembers that fight. They still remember the gnome being chased down. They still remember that die roll hitting the 1. They still remember the giant critical that the barbarian got on the other barbarian that did like, you know, 40 points of damage or something ridiculous. And that's why you play role-playing games. You play role-playing games to be in the moment, but you play role-playing games to also remember those moments and relive those with your friends. So there you go. That was my favorite total party kill. If you have any stories about your favorite total party kills that you were either the DM for or a player for, I would love to hear those. Go ahead and post those, and I would I'll react to those as well. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. And be the best version of you that you possibly can be. I'm going to try to do the same. You might fail somewhere along the way, but I guarantee you if you keep trying, it'll get easier. Throw out that love to the universe. You'll get more love from the universe right back at you. I'm the Undead Viking. You're awesome. I'll see you next time.